All doing? Welcome to another episode of Hockey on the Spot with Brandon Barenfeld. I'm Brandon Barenfeld. Thank you for joining me. This is episode 106 of Hockey on the Spot. For those of you who missed my last video, I updated my status saying I'm only going to do videos once a week. I will usually do videos on Mondays, but I'm making the exception to do it today because this Monday was Martin Luther King. I will not do it on holidays. That's something else I should have brought up. So with that being said, for today's video, I want to talk about the 2014 men's ice hockey Winter Olympic rosters for Sochi in the 2014 Winter Olympics. We have some interesting teams this year. Obviously, we do have the big seven in the United States, Canada, Czech Republic, Russia, Slovakia, Sweden, Finland. Those countries are all back. Switzerland is back, and they have become a big team. They're rising in the ranks and becoming part of that level of those 7 teams. But then we also have 4 other teams that probably aren't going to really go far. Austria, Latvia, Norway, Switzerland. So, we're going to talk about all these rosters and what each roster possesses as far as strength goes. And why not start with the weakest of the countries, actually, Slovenia. Yes, Slovenia. I think I accidentally said Switzerland before as one of the weaker countries. If I did, my bad. But yes, Slovenia, the newest member of the 2014 Sochi Winter Olympics. This is the first time ever that they are going to the Olympics for hockey, and really the main reason they're going is all because of a certain number 11 on the Los Angeles Kings by the name of Andrei Kopitar. Andrei Kopitar has never played in the Olympics before, and he wanted the chance to represent his country. And, well, even though they're most definitely not going to win a medal, they are being given that chance by the International Ice Hockey Federation, which is great to see. Great to see new members coming up. For Slovenia, though, nothing is known about this team at all. You don't know anybody on this team. Andrei Kopitar, the only well-known player on this team, and really the only player of note on this team. And the majority of these players coming from the city of Jesenice, however you say it, or Jesenice, where Andrei Kopitar is from. So that actually consists of more than half the team. But there is one other player of decent note on this team from Maribor, Jan Mrsak, who is the only other Slovenian on this team who has played NHL games before, who's had a little bit of NHL experience with the Detroit Red Wings. But other than those two, really, no other player on this team has had NHL experience whatsoever. You don't know any of these guys. Lucas Grasnar is a guy who's getting a little bit of note. He's getting a little bit of recognition, but not enough to really, be a standout. But he's a small goaltender, but it is believed that he will probably be the starting goaltender for the team. But again, not much is known about their defense either. And because there's really not much known about them, as far as Slovenia goes, all the strengths of this team basically comes in Andrei Kopitar. Big 6'3", 224-pound forward, first rounder from 2005 by the Kings. And again, for Slovenia, this is not a team that's going to really go anywhere in this tournament. They are most definitely going to be the last place team in this tournament. They are in Group A, by the way. They will play in Group A along with Slovakia, the United States, and Russia. But for this team to make any kind of impact whatsoever, Anze Kopitar is going to have to single-handedly dominate the tournament and basically become tournament MVP. That's if they have any hopes, but we all know in this sport, one guy can't do it all alone. So we've learned that with the Atlanta Thrashers and Ilya Kovalchuk. We learned that in the early days of Alex Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals, before they became a real team. But yeah, as far as the Slovenia team goes, this team is not going anywhere. They're not going to win a game this year at all. And Anze Kopitar may be the only player on this team who's going to get them scoring. So, he'll probably factor in on every goal, every play. That's their strength, but their weakness is everything else. They don't have defense. They don't have offense beyond Kopitar, and their goaltending is not going to be very good. So, this Slovenia team, sorry, folks of Slovenia, don't expect any kind of medal, not even a win in this year's Olympics. You guys are just starting out. Yep, that's how it is. So, Slovenia, my prediction for them, last place in the tournament. I believe that they will be last place in the tournament. Too bad for them. I'm starting off with some of the weaker countries here before we get to the bigger names. So why now let's skip to a country in Group B, Norway. Norway is returning to the Olympics after last year, after 4 years ago. And actually 4 years ago, even though they did lose every game, they actually did surprise a lot of people, and they did a lot better than anyone thought. They actually were not the last place team in the last tournament. They actually played solid defensively. However, that does not mean that they're going to do the same thing this year. They definitely have a better roster than Slovenia, but really, again, we're looking at another roster where the majority of their team is being relied on by one or two guys, in this case, they have two guys to really turn to, but none more than New York Rangers forward Mats Zuccarello, an undrafted forward out of Oslo, Norway, and that is the city that dominates this Norwegian team, Oslo. This Norwegian team, Zuccarello is their best player. He was their best player in, the tournament 4 years ago. And if it wasn't for him, Norway probably wouldn't have been as good as they turned out to be. And it was in the Olympics where Zuc got recognition. He was an MVP in the Swedish Hockey League a few years back. The New York Rangers took note of that, and so they signed him. It did take Zuccarello 3 years to get going, but this year he has had a career year. He has been arguably the best player on the team in many different areas. So Zuccarello's been a fine player for the Rangers. He could see a contract extension at some point. But there is one other player on this team of note, a former superstar from the KHL, and actually a guy with NHL experience, Patrick Thoresen. Patrick Thoresen is a guy who had a lot of talent. He never really, again, lived up to his expectations in the NHL. But again, when he went to the KHL, he became a superstar and a league MVP as well. So they can expect good things from him as well. He's really going to be a help. So expect the native of Hamar to play on the same line with Matt Zuccarello. But other than those two, that's pretty much it. They don't have anybody else on this team of significant note. Once again, the rest of their forwards, we don't know. Their goaltending, we don't know. As their defense, only one defenseman on this team has had NHL experience. Ole Christian Tollefson, who used to play for the Columbus Blue Jackets, the Philadelphia Flyers, and the Detroit Red Wings. But he is long gone. He was actually a solid player when he used to play for the Blue Jackets. But once he left Columbus, he wasn't as good as anymore. But he actually was a big part of that 08-09 Columbus team, the only Columbus Blue Jackets team to this day that has ever made the playoffs. For Tollefson, he'll be the key man on defense for sure. And they also have Jonas Holos back there, former member of the Colorado Avalanche from 2010-2011, played 39 games for them that year. We'll see how he turns out with this team. Overall, though, this Norwegian team, again, they will be better than Slovenia, but that's about it. But at the same time, for the first time ever now, in every tournament it seems, Norway seems to be the team that's expected to be the worst. This year that is not the case. They now have somebody to play under the gun from them in Slovenia, and they'll definitely be better than Slovenia. I see this Norwegian team finishing 11th in the standings. That's pretty much a given. Again, and it's one of those situations where either Matt Zuccarello or Patrick Thoresen is going to have to take charge of this team offensively, and maybe a guy like Ole Christian Tollefson dominating defensively. So I don't see a medal or even a medal round appearance for this Norwegian team. Sorry, guys. Maybe in 4 years. Anyway, continuing on, let's now go to a team in Group C. Latvia. For Latvia, this was the team that finished tied as the worst team 4 years ago, tied with Germany. Germany, by the way, not back in the tournament this year, because again, I believe they were the absolute worst team from 4 years ago. But as far as this Latvian team goes, this is a team that always tries to model its skill after the Russians. However, we all know, hands down, that they're nowhere near as good as the Russians. So, with that being said, though, there actually are a couple of names on this Latvian team of note, like the starting goaltender, Kristers Gudlevskis, Tampa Bay Lightning prospect. Yes, a Tampa Bay Lightning prospect. He is a guy who is expected to make an impact in the NHL, actually. Again, a Latvian goaltender being expected to make an impact in the NHL, and he could be the X factor for this Latvian team. So, he's going to be a guy set out to get recognition in this tournament. But the other two goaltenders, you don't know any of them. As far as their defense goes, they have a couple of noteworthy defensemen, one of them being Oskars Bartulis, a former Philadelphia Flyer. He's in the tournament this year. He's going to be a big, he was a solid shutdown defenseman with the Flyers, so he's going to look to do just that for Latvia. And then on this team as well, surprisingly enough, a guy who was not on the team 4 years ago, Sandis Ozolins, as he is called in Latvia, but everyone, his actual name, the name we know him by, Sandis Ozolinsh. Yes, folks, Sandis Ozolinsh is playing for Team Latvia this year. For those of you who all thought that he was retired, that is apparently not the case. I honestly thought he was retired too. A former superstar, two-way defenseman in the National Hockey League, and a cup winner for the Colorado Avalanche back in 1996. So, Sandis Ozolinsh, a guy, he hopes to be a factor for this tournament, but again, he's old, so that means his skills today is very limited, and so we'll see how he fares in the Olympics this year. But those are the only two noteworthy defensemen. Up front, This is where they're probably going to be relying on mostly. Kaspers Dojevins, a guy with plenty of talent and unbelievable hands and great speed. They're going to rely on his skill. Martins Carsum's a guy who's had NHL experience. He's a defensive forward. He'll be a factor on their penalty kill. And then the big name on this list, the only NHLer on this Latvia team right now, Zemgus Girgensons of the Buffalo Sabres, the 14th overall pick from 2012, the first and so far only Latvian to ever be taken in the first round, 14th overall. And this is a guy who's expected to be a star in the National Hockey League, or at least a very good player, very good two-way hockey player, and a top six forward for years to come. So, with that being said, Semyas Girgensons is a guy who's looking to really dominate this tournament. He may not. He's having an okay rookie season. Maybe not the rookie season he has hoped for, but you never know. The Olympics is a different thing, and playing on that international ice surface may be better suited for his style of play. But we'll see. But for Zemgus Girgensons, it's another situation where one player is going to have to really dominate this team, or a couple guys. They have more guys capable than Norway or Slovenia, which is why I'm saying Latvia is going to finish 10th in the tournament rather than lower. They definitely look like a better team than they did 4 years ago, but not really a team that's really going to dominate the tournament. So for Latvia, I'm going to have to say 10th place for them. Too bad. Now we're climbing up the ladder in case you haven't noticed the pattern. So now let's go back to Group B and take a look at the team that I predict to finish in 9th. Austria. The Austrians are back in the tournament this year, folks, and they're hungry. They did not play 4 years ago, and they're hungry to make a name for themselves. And they actually have some players that are very capable of doing so. And it was another situation where the only reason they're in this tournament again is because one guy wanted to play for his country. And actually there are a few guys, but one guy in particular, a player by the name of Thomas Vanek, a star in the National Hockey League, the greatest Austrian player ever to play the game, 5th overall from 2003. But he is definitely on that team. Michael Grabner is also a part of that team. 2 members of the New York Islanders. He's a guy who great speed, great shot. So they're hoping that he'll be a factor offensively. Also going to be a member playing on that team, Michael Raffl of the Philadelphia Flyers. He is the only other NHL player on this team, and he is becoming a very good player in the National Hockey League. He is going to continue to do that in the National Hockey League, and that's going to be the top line for Austria. Let me tell you, folks, Austria is going to have a deadly top line in the Olympics this year. Michael Grabner and Thomas Vanek playing the wings, and Michael Raffl usually plays the wing, but I can see him playing center, being moved to center to play with those 2 guys at some point in the tournament. And if that's the case, that's going to be one of the deadliest top lines in the tournament. However, beyond that top line, unfortunately, they don't have anything else. You don't know any of these forward. You don't know any more of these forwards, unfortunately. On defense, they're pretty limited on defense. A former NHLer, though, is on that defense. Thomas Polk, former New York Ranger and New York Islander. He's a guy who they're hoping will hopefully lead the defense. We don't know anybody from this goaltending at all. None of these goaltenders are really well known. Although they do have one defenseman on this team, I should point out, a big 6'8", 236-pound guy who is an older player though, Lakos, who born in 1979, so he's an older player. But they'll expect him to be their top shutdown guy on defense. But he's going to be one of the bigger players. He'll be one of the bigger players in the whole tournament for any team. But again, and we're once again in a situation where if Austria wants to dominate, not just Vanek, but that whole top line mostly Vanek, but that whole top line is going to have to dominate. Michael Grabner, Michael Raffel, and Thomas Vanek. All three of them are going to have to dominate the tournament. But they are going to be one deadly top line if Raffel does decide to move to center for that tournament. So, but overall, again, ninth place finish in my opinion for Austria. They just don't have anything else. They don't have a good defense. They don't have good goaltending, and the rest of their lines are not that good either. All their strengths lie in that top line. Their top line is going to have to pretty much be the defense, be the goaltending, and be the rest of the offense as well. That top line is going to have to do everything in order for this Austrian team to go places. So, that being said, a ninth place finish in my opinion for Austria. Now we get to some of the bigger teams, folks. We're now getting to the bigger 8 members of the 8 teams. So let's go back to Group C now. Talk about Switzerland. Switzerland is a country. They've really been intriguing over the years. And back in the day, this never used to be a country that you would expect to really ever be a factor in the tournament. They have 2 medals. They do have 2 medals on their resume. But again, in today's world, you would never expect anything from a Swiss team up until now. In the past couple years, Switzerland has become a country to be recognized. Are they good enough to win a medal? No, they're still not good enough to win a medal, but they're definitely contenders. That's for sure. Or they do have a lot of guys. The majority of this team are guys that you probably wouldn't know. That much is true. But they do have some skill on this team, and they have a lot of NHL talent on this team. So we'll take a look at the NHL talent on this team up front. They have 2 players. They have 2 players who currently play in the NHL. Damian Brunner from the New Jersey Devils and Nino Niederreiter from the Minnesota Wild. They'll look to be the dominant forces offensively. Very surprising, though, that Sven Baertschi of the Calgary Flames didn't make this team. I am very shocked by that, actually. But pretty much when it comes down to it, those 2 forwards are going to have to be dominant. But there are a couple of non-NHL forwards on this team that also have a lot of skill. Matthias Bieber, a player with a tremendous amount of skill, and Roman Wick, who was pretty much the dominant forward for Switzerland 4 years ago. He was their most reliable forward. But in last year's tournament, they didn't have any NHLers up front. Now they have 2. But offensively, that's pretty much where this team is weak. They don't have a very good offense. They really don't. Outside of Brunner and Niederreiter and Wick and Bieber, they don't have anything else, really. I mean, actually, there is one other player, Simon Moser, who is the only American Hockey League player for any team going to the Olympics this year. He currently plays for the Milwaukee Admirals, affiliate of the Nashville Predators. He's a guy who I got to see play in the preseason this year, and he's a guy who's has a lot of skill, a lot of talent, and he's a guy who's going to have an NHL future for sure. So Simon Moser, he's going to be a good asset for this team. He's going to have to continue what he's doing in the Olympics. For the Olympics, he'll have to continue what he was doing in the American Hockey League, pretty much. Where this team is really strong is on defense. Defense is the best for this team, and they have a lot of NHLers on this defense. Rafael Diaz of the Montreal Canadiens, Roman Josi of the Nashville Predators, Mark Streit of the Philadelphia Flyers, and Yannick Weber from the Vancouver Canucks, and he's becoming a factor for the Vancouver Canucks. No Luca Spiza on this team. Luca Spiza from the Anaheim Ducks, the Italian-born Swiss, but that is because he spent most of the year hurt. Disappointing, I guess, but still, it's understandable at the same time. But those 4 defensemen, they're going to be huge for this team. Another player on this defense, Blindenbacher, he's a veteran guy playing in that European League, so they'll look to his wisdom on that blue line for sure. And then their goaltending, they actually have a strong goaltending this year. year. Obviously, we all know the unquestioned starter, Jonas Hiller from the Anaheim Ducks, who is having a very dominant season despite the loss, despite not having a good game last night. And by the way, on a side note, the Anaheim Ducks home point streak has come to an end. The Winnipeg Jets have handed them their first regulation loss on home ice last night by a final score of 3-2. But anyway, now we go. But going back to Team Switzerland, Jonas Hiller, despite the rough night last night, he is going to be the key player overall for this team. He's going to have to stand on his head in order for this team to really be strong, and he'll have to get help defensively as well. Another guy on this team, Rito Berra of the Calgary Flames, the silver medal winning goaltender from the World Championships. That's right, folks. Switzerland went all the way to win the silver medal in the World Championships this past year when nobody expected them to even come close to medal contention. But he is a good guy. He's a good goaltender, and he's a guy who will be good to help Hiller out. And then the third-string goaltender, a former Dallas Star, Tobias Stefan. He's, again, a third-string guy. He's just an okay guy, but it's really going to be those two goaltenders. Rito Berra, by the way, big guy, 6'4", 194 pounds. He's the biggest. He's the biggest goaltender. The biggest player on this team, Ryan Gardner, 6'6", 227 pounds. He's actually born in Toronto, Ontario, Canadian-born, but raised in Switzerland, obviously. So overall, this Swiss team, I like their goaltending and I like their defense. I think they have one of the better defenses in the tournament. However, where this team is weak is on offense. Damien Brunner, a guy with a lot of skill. Nino Niederreiter, a lot of skill. Simon Moser has a lot of skill. Matthias Bieber has a lot of skill. And Roman Wick, who was their top forward 4 years ago, he possesses a lot of skill. Has only 2 games of NHL experience with the Ottawa Senators. But, again, he'll have to have another big tournament, of course. And the rest of these forwards are really going to have... I'd say the forward that's really going to have to take charge overall, I personally say, is probably going to have to be Damien Brunner. If this Swiss team hopes to go anywhere, Damien Brunner's going to have to be big. But offensively, this is not going to be a good team. This team is going to have... They're not going to be scoring a lot. They're going to have to rely heavily on their defense and their goaltending. This is going to be a defensive-minded team, but you need offense as well. So that's why I say, hey, I don't think they're going to give up a lot of goals. I think they'll be one of the better defensive teams in the whole tournament. I think they'll give up some of the least amount of goals in the tournament. However, I also think they're going to score maybe the least amount of goals in the tournament. So with that being said, that is why I predict that this team is going to finish in 8th place. They're going to fall very early in the medal round. Now we get to the Big 7, starting with Slovakia. Slovakia had a huge tournament 4 years ago, their best tournament ever, finishing 4th place, just losing to Finland in the bronze medal game. And this team, they got talent. They've definitely got talent. We know it. They have a bunch of different NHLers on this team. In goal, they have 2 goaltenders who are both in the NHL today. Peter Budaj of the Montreal Canadiens and Yaroslav Halak of the St. Louis Blues, former Montreal Canadian. He will definitely be the starting goaltender. They have Lacko, who is going to be the third-string guy. But Halak, he's going to look to have a big tournament. On defense, they have On defense, they have the biggest player in the world, Zdeno Chara from the Boston Bruins, 6'9", 255 pounds. He's going to be their captain, and great. Obviously, no one else is qualified, in my personal opinion, and he's going to hope to have a great tournament. He's got the biggest shot in the whole tournament as well. One thing we know about the Slovakian defense, they all possess weapons at the point. And they're all decent in size, too. They have a lot of size on this blue line, actually. Ivan Baranka, former New York Ranger prospect, solid as far as size. Martin Marinson, of the Edmonton Oilers, big 6'4", 188-pounder. Andre Mazzaros of the Philadelphia Flyers, another big guy with a big weapon. Andre Sekera, as he's now called, no longer Sekera, but Andre Sekera of the Carolina Hurricanes, former Buffalo Sabre. He's decent in size. The only smaller defenseman on this team is Lubomir Vishnowsky at 5'10", 192 pounds. Lubomir Vishnowsky of the New York Islanders, but the way he plays makes him look bigger than he really is. He possesses a weapon at the point, probably the second biggest shot on this whole team, but he's not getting any younger. He's very old now. He's 38 years of age, and that's why his skills are pretty much at their limits now. But he still possesses great skating ability and a great shot. So look for him to try to have a big tournament. But this is a very strong defense. Offensively, it seems. Defensively, that could be the real issue for this defense. I mean, they have Chara, who's great both ways, but he's very slow. So if he's in the offensive zone, there's no way he's getting back. So they're going to need to maybe rely on a guy like Vishnowsky, like Sekera, and like Mazzaros to play that north-south game on defense. Martin Marinson's still very young. Not much is known about him. So, but he's one of Edmonton's top prospects, and he's playing in the tournament. So there you have it with that. Where this team this team's real strength, though, comes on offense. Marian Gaborik, Michael Handzus, the Hossa brothers, Marcel Hossa, and more importantly, Marian Hossa, the older brother. Smaller than his younger brother, but definitely a much better player. Marian Gaborik of the Columbus Blue Jackets, both Michael Handzus and Marian Hossa of the Chicago Blackhawks. They have a couple of Detroit Red Wings on this team, Tomas Jurko and Tomas Tatar. Those guys are nothing but balls of skill. They are all skill. Those two guys, Tomas Tatar, we've seen his hands, just unreal. His hands are just absolutely unreal. He's made some unreal plays, and Tomas Jurko, we've seen him. He's becoming like a magician, and a very popular guy in the Detroit lineup. He's going to be a huge factor for this tournament. Tomas Kopecky of the Florida Panthers, Richard Panik of the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's a strong power forward. Kopecky and Handzus defensive forwards. But see what I mean? This is a team, as far as their forwards go, they possess skill. They are the skill factor for this team, the hand-eye coordination, the speed, that's all there for this Slovakia team, and they're definitely going to look to avenge the death of their very close friend, Pavel Demitra, who died in that plane crash for the Yaroslav Lokomotiv team. This team's going to look to have a big tournament. But at the same time, to be very honest, I don't think they're going to be as good as they were 4 years ago. Marian Gaborik, he's not having a good season. He's been suffering from injuries all year long, and he's going to be a guy who's going to hope to be healthy, but he possesses a lot of speed and a lot of talent, but he's not having a good year. It's not a good situation for him, which means he could have a rough tournament. Marian Hossa is really going to be the top player on this team, period. But even though he's older now, he's still nothing but skill. The age has not gotten to him yet. He is still one of the best players in the NHL today. They got, again, the youngsters. They're going to have to come up big, but they're very young. So that's why I'm predicting Slovakia is going to have a setback year and finish in 7th place in the medal round. So that's too bad for them. And by the way, they are part of Group A. So, yep, sorry Slovakia, but at least you'll make the medal round like you always do. And now why don't we go to their arch rivals in Group C, the Czech Republic. The Czech Republic, heck, lots more NHL talent on this team than Slovakia or Switzerland for sure, or any other team we've talked about. They do have, and a lot of the guys who don't play in the NHL, you do know. You do know the majority of them. Um, um, this is a team that's going to be very strong, both on offense and defense. However, they are one of the older teams in the tournament at the same time. They have a lot of age on this team. There's not one guy on this team who's really young. Actually, there aren't that many guys on this team who are really young. The only real young players on this team are the two Tampa Bay Lightning players on this team, Andre Palat and Radko Gudas. Everyone else is a veteran, pretty much. Everyone else is a veteran, but we talk about this team. Patrick Elias from the New Jersey Devils. The New Jersey Devils are the team that dominates this Slovakia team, by the way. Patrick Elias, Jaromir Jagr, Marek Zidlitsky, all from the New Jersey Devils. They're all part of this team. Michael Frolik of the Winnipeg Jets, Martin Hansel of the Phoenix Coyotes, Ales Hemsky of the Edmonton Oilers, David Krejci from the Boston Bruins, Milan Michalek from the Ottawa Senators. We talked about Andre Palat and Radko Gudas, both of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Radko Gudas, by the way, a physical force, and we'll talk more about him later. Thomas Plekanec of the Montreal Canadiens, Vladimir Sobotka of the St. Louis Blues, and Jakub Voracek of the Philadelphia Flyers. And then we talk about the defense here. So they're very strong on offense. And then the guys who are not in the NHL now on offense, but used to play in the NHL, Roman Cervenka, Peter Nedved, and Yuri Novotny. Why Yuri Novotny is a part of this team? This is really the big question I have. Why Yuri Novotny is on this team and not Radim Vrbata of the Phoenix Coyotes is beyond me. Novotny, a huge disappointment in the NHL, and Vrbata having one of the best years of his career. So that's going to be really something that's going to kill them. They're going to miss Vrbata's goal scoring, that's for sure. So why he didn't make the tournament is beyond me. On defense, you pretty much know all the defensemen except for really one guy, Barinka. Don't really know him that well. But the rest of these guys, Thomas Kaberle and Lucas Krajcek, both former NHL players. We all know Kaberle and the skill he used to possess when he was younger. But again, Radko Gudas of the Tampa Bay Lightning, Zbigniew Michalek from the Phoenix Coyotes, the older brother of Milan, Michael Rozsival of the Chicago Blackhawks, Ladislav Schmid of the Calgary Flames, and again, Marek Zidlitsky of the New Jersey Devils. They'll look for Zidlitsky to be their top defenseman offensively. Defensively, they're going to look to a guy like Zbigniew Michalek, and then physically, Radko Gudas. He is going to be a pest out there on the ice. He is already doing so for the Lightning, and he's a punisher. This is a guy who's going to hit you every second chance he gets. Where this team's going to be really weak, though, is in goal. Andre Pavelec, the only NHL goaltender on this team from the Winnipeg Jets, and that's really where you're concerned, because Pavelec's a very good goaltender, very solid, big guy, 6'3", 220 pounds, but unfortunately, the cold hard truth is, he's really yet to really become a dominant factor in the National Hockey League, and he's a guy who probably won't be a dominant factor, ever. He's a goaltender that when he's hot, he's hot. He's having a good night. When he's having a good night, there's no way you're getting a puck past him. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen a lot. So, and you really don't know any of the other two goaltenders at all. I mean, Alexander Salak, a Chicago Blackhawks prospect. You don't even know the other guy, Kovar. So that's really the big weakness for this Czech Republic team, their goaltending. Their offense is going to have to be good, and their defense is going to have to be strong in order for them to become a factor. But because of that goaltending, I really see this team not really finishing that well. And also the age. Again, the age is going to be a huge thing. Also, no Martin Havlat on this team, by the way. He's not having a good year. But again, for this Czech Republic team, I don't see them really going far because of their goaltending. I mean, they'll obviously make the medal round, but they'll probably finish like 6th. So Sorry, Czech Republic. You need to get better goaltending. That's just it. Their goaltending is going to be the big weakness, and it's the age factor as well. They're the oldest, I believe, if I'm correct. They are the oldest team in the tournament, and older guys don't really achieve that well. I mean, Jaromir Jagr, the oldest player on this team, he's having an unbelievable season for the New Jersey Devils, and still the strongest player in the game is on the puck. But still, it's still a concern. Patrick Elias, he's had injury problems all year. Very helpful when healthy, but still. The age factor is going to be the thing, and that's why I don't see this Czech team really going far. Sixth place is going to be their calling card. Next, we look at the Finns. Team Finland. Now, they are an interesting bunch this year. They really are. There are a lot of guys from Finland who really didn't make the cut. Who probably should have been there. We'll talk about that in a second. But let's talk about, some of the guys who are on this team that you would know. This is a team with a mixed age group. They are actually one of the younger teams in the tournament. They have the youngest player in the whole tournament in Alexander Barkov from the Florida Panthers. But they are a mixed age group, actually. They are a mixed age group, and they have talent. They absolutely have talent. Again, Alexander Barkov from the Florida Panthers, Valtteri Filppula from the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's the top scoring Finn this year, surprisingly enough. He's having a breakout year. Michael Granlund from the Minnesota Wild, UC Jokinen from the Pittsburgh Penguins, and Olli Jokinen from the Winnipeg Jets. Mikko Koivu from the Minnesota Wild. His brother Saku did not make the cut, but is a guy they'll look to if someone does get hurt. Leo Komarov, who he played for the Toronto Maple Leafs last year, the Estonian-born Finn with a Russian heritage. He's not playing in the NHL anymore. Lauri Korpikoski of the Phoenix Coyotes, Tomo Rutsu of the Carolina Hurricanes, and, of course, Teemu Selanne of the Anaheim Ducks, the oldest player in the National Hockey League and the oldest player in the tournament. But then, of course, they have a few names, obviously not in the NHL, like Leo Komarov, but the other guys you wouldn't know. But there are a couple guys I'm surprised. The big name up front that didn't make this team, really, was Sean Bergenheim of the Florida Panthers. Really shocking he didn't make the team. He's having a solid year and is one of the better defensive forwards in the game. On defense, this is where it kind of gets concerning for the Finns. I don't like their defense this year, to be very honest. Lassi Kukkonen, a former NHLer, Sami Lepisto, a former NHLer, Ozzy Vananen, a former NHLer. And then here are the NHL defensemen. Olli Määttä from the Pittsburgh Penguins, Sami Salo from the Tampa Bay Lightning, and Kimmo Timonen from the Philadelphia Flyers. Sami Vatanen is also on this team, and the Anaheim Ducks defenseman. He was sent down to the American Hockey League, so that's why he's not listed as an NHL player. But, this is not a good defense at all. I'm actually kind of surprised that a guy like Rasmus Ristolainen didn't make the cut, even though he's still very young. He scored the overtime winning goal in the gold medal game against Sweden to give his team the gold medal. But I think overall, the big surprise as far as not making the cut is Saku Koivu. Saku Koivu and Sean Bergenheim. So up front. So yeah, this is not a very good defense, honestly. Sami Salo, very old. Kimmo Timonen, the oldest defenseman. Olli Määttä is very young. He probably will be, and so is Sami Vatanen. Those two will probably be the key defensemen for this team, and that's not good when you're relying on young defensemen to be basically the core of your defense. Especially when they're as young as those guys. Well, or at least Määttä, even though they're both having very good years. Where this team is really, really strong, actually, and probably the strongest in the whole entire tournament, is in goal. They had a lot of choices to make this year as far as goaltending goes. Kari Lehtinen of the Dallas Stars, Antti Niemi of the San Jose Sharks, and Tuukka Rask of the Boston Bruins ultimately were the goaltenders that would make the cut. Pekka Rinne of the Nashville Predators was also in the mix, but unfortunately injuries have really hurt him, really hurt his chances of making the team, and that's why he's not playing on the team, because he's out and will be out through the Olympics. And when he was healthy, he wasn't playing great, But, they have Finns are coming on goaltending. Antti Ranta has 12 wins this year, only one loss and 3 OT losses for the Chicago Blackhawks. He's becoming a good backup for Corey Crawford. Nicholas Backstrom, unfortunately, it's been a bad year for him. Nicholas Backstrom of the Minnesota Wild. And then you got Kari Ramo of the Calgary Flames. So those two guys would definitely have not have made it. But it really came down to those four names. Niemi, Rask, Lehtinen, and Rinne. But, of course, Rinne got hurt, so he was singled out. Now, the real question is, which one of these goaltenders is going to be the starter? I don't think it'll be Lehtinen. I think he'll be the third-string goaltender. So, to me, it's going to come down to Niemi and Rask. Niemi has more wins this season, but Rask has a better goals against average and save percentage. So, I think it's going to be Rask. That's just my opinion. I think they'll both get their chances to start in games. And I even think Lehtinen will get a start. I think they'll all get a start for each individual game in the preliminary round. And whichever one does the best will probably be their starting goaltender going through. That goaltending is their strength, and offensively they're very good too. They have a lot of talent up front. And again, it's a mixed age group. They have the youngest players in the tournament, but they also have the oldest players in the tournament. Defensively, that's really the concern for this team. That's really the big concern for this team. I don't trust that defense. I think their defense is going to have to be real good in order for them to get past teams like Sweden and the United States and Canada and Russia. But unfortunately, they're not as good as either of those four. So that's why I say for Finland, they're going to finish 5th place in the tournament. But again, that they have a lot of talent up front. Their goaltending is the best in the whole tournament, without question. But it's that defense that's really concerning. But the one thing you got to know about Finland, year in and year out, do not give them a power play, because if you give them a power play, they're going to strike on it. They're one of the deadliest teams year in and year out. They're one of the deadliest teams on the power play, if not the deadliest team on the power play. A defensive group, a team that's normally known as a defensive group, but when given a power play chance, they are going to use that talent and all that open ice of theirs to get a puck behind your goaltender. And Finland, of course, has won the most medals since NHLers have started going to the Olympics, so that's obviously going to be a factor for this team, but I don't think it's going to be done this year. I think 5th place is where we're going to see Finland for this year. I just don't like that defense. I really don't. Next, we go to Team Sweden. Now, this team in general is probably the X factor of the whole tournament. Team Sweden, this is a team that is just absolutely loaded this year, and they are contenders for a medal. Probably the most NHLers we've ever seen on a European team ever. For Sweden, only one player on this whole team, who does not play in the NHL. That is Joakim Eriksson, who plays in the Swedish Hockey League for Skellefteå. Don't know too much about him. Nobody knows that much about him, really, Joakim Eriksson. But how about all the other players that are on this team? There are a bunch of Erikssons on this team, by the way. Hey, but all the different players on this team. Daniel Alfredsson, all the different players that are on this team. 6 of them members of the Detroit Red Wings, the most any individual team has from an NHL team. And we'll get to all the different Detroit Red Wings on this team in a sec. We got Nicholas Backstrom from the Washington Capitals, Patrick Berglund from the St. Louis Blues, Louis Eriksson from the Boston Bruins, Carl Hagelin from the New York Rangers, Gabriel Landeskog from the Colorado Avalanche. The Sedin twins, Henrik and Daniel Sedin, both of the Vancouver Canucks. Jakob Silverberg of the Anaheim Ducks. Alexander Steen from the St. Louis Blues, born in Winnipeg, Manitoba, but raised in Sweden. That's up front. On defense, another Vancouver Canuck, Alexander Edler. Oliver Ekman-Larsson of the Phoenix Coyotes. Erik Karlsson of the Ottawa Senators. Henrik Tolinder from the Buffalo Sabres. He is actually kind of a surprise to me. Why he's actually on that team is beyond me. I don't understand it. I think someone much more qualified could have been on that team, to be very honest. But that's just my opinion. I don't see the point of Tolinder being on that team, especially considering he's getting very old. Why didn't Victor Hedman of the Tampa Bay Lightning make the cut? He is much more qualified to make this team than Henrik Tolinder. Or maybe guys like Jonas Brodin of the Minnesota Wild or Hampus Lindholm of the Anaheim Ducks having a spectacular rookie season. I don't understand it. I just don't understand it. I really don't. Makes absolutely no sense. And that's going to be, but again, it should have been Hedman. That's just my opinion. He's having a breakout year for the Tampa Bay Lightning this year. So why he's not on that roster and Tolinder is just beyond me. And then in goal, you know, got some very good goaltending here. Jonas Enroth of the Buffalo Sabres and Henrik Lundqvist of the New York Rangers. Lundqvist, he's without question going to be the starter, and Enroth will probably be the backup. But we'll talk about some of the other guys also. One thing I forgot to mention, though, we said 3 Vancouver Canucks on this team, the Sedin twins and Alexander Edler. Edler, though, they will be without his services for the first 2 games of the tournament, serving the end of a suspension that he got in the World Championships for that knee-on-knee hit with Eric Stahl. There are also 3 Chicago Blackhawks on this team, Marcus Kruger, Nicholas Hjalmarsson, and Johnny Oduya. So they're both part of the team. And now let's talk about the 6th, but then again, 6 Detroit Red Wings. We have not mentioned their names yet. Let's talk about them now. Daniel Alfredsson, Johan Franzen, Henrik Zetterberg, Jonathan Eriksson, Nicholas Kronwall, and Jonas Gustafsson. He'll probably be the 3rd string goaltender, though. So if you want to say that, if he's going to be the 3rd string, you could almost say 5. But still, that is ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. Another guy who probably could have made the cut but didn't, Victor Faust of the Anaheim Ducks, but he's not having a good year. He's been hurt all year. Man, oh man, just this team is just absolutely loaded. Also, Tobias Enstrom didn't make the cut. He's another guy who I think could have been very qualified to make the cut. So, again, why Tolinder is there rather than Hedman or Enstrom or maybe even Brodin or Lindholm is just beyond me. It's just absolutely beyond me. So you're kind of surprised that those guys didn't make the cut. Marcus, and another guy who I actually think could have possibly made the cut, guys like Marcus Johansson of the Washington Capitals, Patrick Hornquist of the Nashville Predators. He definitely should have been there, actually. Or even Patrick Berglund. Patrick Berglund did make the cut. Never mind. I said that, but maybe even Mika Zibanejad to a lesser extent of the Ottawa Senators. So why? Maybe, or how about Gustav Nyquist of the Detroit Red Wings? Another Detroit Red Wing, yes, but a guy with a boatload of skill rather than a guy like Joachim Eriksson. There are a lot of candidates for the forward position. Again, Joachim Eriksson, why he's there, and Henrik Tolinder, why he's there. That's just beyond me. But this Sweden team is going to be loaded. They are loaded up front. One of the best offenses this year. They are known for their playmaking, year in and year out, Sweden's known for their playmaking and their defense excellent. And it'll be even more excellent when they get Edler back. That's, in goal, that's really going to be the big question, really, because, even though it's Henrik Lundqvist, best goaltender in the world without question right now, but again, up until recently, he had been very inconsistent, and it's that inconsistency factor that Lundqvist has been having. It's probably been his worst season, period. That's really going to be the concern. If Lundqvist doesn't play well, this team is not going to do well because they really don't have anyone else good. Jonas Enroth is just okay, and Jonas Gustafsson is just okay. So they need Lundqvist to be healthy, and they need him to be the Henrik Lundqvist we know him to be in the past. So, but it's, but overall, I think the Sweden team is definitely going to challenge for a medal. I think they're going to finish 4th, but don't take my word on it for this particular team, because this team is that team that can steal a medal from one of the 3 teams who I think will win the medal. And so with that being said, let's talk about the teams that are going to win the medal. Oh, and by the way, Sweden in Group C and Finland in Group B. So now let's get to the teams that I think will win medals. A couple of them in Group A, starting with my homeboys, Team USA, the United States. Now, for this United States team this year, they have a very interesting roster this year, and we know the direction they've been going in the past couple of years, and it's that direction that took them all the way to the silver medal last year, just coming up short on Canada 4 years ago. But guys who are back from that tournament, they're going toward the power forward route. Lots of power forwards on this U.S. team. They are a strong, physical, fast team. They have a lot of guys who won't have a wow factor to their game, but just punish you when they get the chance to line you up. The majority of this team, St. Louis Blues and New York Rangers. 3 Blues and 3 Rangers. But from the St. Louis Blues, David Backes, T.J. Oshie, and Kevin Shattenkirk, and from the New York Rangers, Ryan Callahan, Derek Stepan, and Ryan McDonough. So, there we have that. But now we talk about some of the other players on that team. Dustin Brown from the Los Angeles Kings, Patrick Kane from the Chicago Blackhawks, probably the best player on the team overall. Ryan Kessler of the Vancouver Canucks, Phil Kessel of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Again, actually kind of a surprise to see T.J. Oshie on the team. Max Pacioretty from the Montreal Canadiens. Zach Parise from the Minnesota Wild. He'll be a factor for that team. Joe Pavelski from the San Jose Sharks. Paul Stastny from the Colorado Avalanche. Born in Quebec City, but raised in the U.S. James Van Riemsdyk from the Toronto Maple Leafs. Blake Wheeler from the Winnipeg Jets. That's the offense. On defense, John Carlson from the Washington Capitals, Justin Falk from the Carolina Hurricanes, Cam Fowler from the Anaheim Ducks, who wasn't even in Olympic talks before the year began. He's having a breakout year. Paul Martin from the Pittsburgh Penguins, Brooks Orpik from the Pittsburgh Penguins, and Ryan Suter from the Minnesota Wild. That's the defense. And in goal, this was a tough choice as well. They have maybe the second best goaltending in the whole tournament behind Finland. But it came down to Jimmy Howard from the Detroit Red Wings, Ryan Miller from the Buffalo Sabres, and Jonathan Quick from the Los Angeles Kings. So, we talk about now this U.S. team, and the theme again, a lot of power forwards, and they do have some skill. Again, they do have some wow factor guys too, like Patrick Kane, Zach Parise, Phil Kessel, Ryan Kessler. Those guys will wow you with their skill. Ryan Kessler having a rejuvenated year. He's having a huge comeback year after a couple of injury-prone seasons. So they're going to rely on him to be healthy if they're going to go anywhere. Paul Stastny, another guy with skill. Joe Pavelski, how about the kind of year he's having for the San Jose Sharks? He just continues to get better and better. But yes, and on defense, again, I think the key defenseman for this team is without a doubt going to be Ryan Suter from the Minnesota Wild. He's having a big year. He logs lots of minutes. He is a guy who can log 35 minutes a game. We've seen it before. Now the big question for this team really is who's going to start in goal. Most people believe it's going to be Jonathan Quick, and I actually believe it's going to be Jonathan Quick. But Ryan Miller, despite being on the only reason Ryan Miller's looked bad is because he's playing on a Buffalo Sabres team that's not playing well this year. They're the worst team in the National Hockey League. Miller has been their best player all year long. And despite that terrible losing record, he's been having a great season. He's given up very few goals. And then there's Jimmy Howard, but Jimmy Howard, he's injured. He's had a lot of injuries this year, so I think he'll be the third-string goaltender if he even plays, if he even manages to stay healthy. If not, then there's a good chance that Ben Bishop of the Tampa Bay Lightning would take his place. But and he's having a big season. So, with that being said, this U.S. team, they're just loaded this year. However, the one weakness for this team this year is at center. They don't have a lot of good centermen as far as face-off wins go, and the center position is their weak spot. So they're going to have to close up that middle lane very well. But again, the U.S. might have some of the biggest surprises that did not make the cut. Maybe the biggest surprise of the whole tournament that didn't make the cut is Bobby Ryan from the Ottawa Senators having a big comeback year for the Senators. Had a bad year last year for the Anaheim Ducks. And he was on the team 4 years ago, and he's a guy with a boatload of skill. Second overall pick from '05 behind Sidney Crosby, and for good reason. He is just an absolute, magician with the puck. So big surprise he didn't make the team. Just really big surprise. But then there's other guys as well. Jason Pominville. He was actually born and raised in Canada, but got a U.S. citizenship and chose to represent the United States. So it's a big surprise, that Bobby Ryan didn't make the team. But there are other guys as well who are definitely capable. Kyle Oposo of the New York Islanders having a huge year, the best year of his career. He didn't make the cut. TJ Oshie did. You got Dustin Byfuglien who didn't make the cut. You would have thought he would have made it. Keith Yandel, another big name. They don't feel he's having a good year, so he didn't make the cut. Brandon Dubinsky, he's having a huge year for the Columbus Blue Jackets. He didn't make it. So those are names that maybe should have been on the team but didn't make it. Jason Pominville, again, as I mentioned. I know Kyle Palmieri was another guy they had talked about, but he's not good enough. And maybe with a guy like Nick Bonino, the kind of year he's had, maybe he's a guy who in the later stages, if there was more time, could have been put into consideration. But maybe in 4 years from now, if the NHL does go back, Bonino will be on the team. So, with that being said, though, with the United States, as far as I'm concerned, I think there are a couple of guys who maybe they're going to regret putting on this team. And because of that, and because of their weakness at center, I give this team, I don't think they're going to finish as good as 4 years ago. Oh, they're going to miss Brian Rafalski on that blue line for sure. The top scorer from the tournament 4 years ago. So with that being said, I give this team the bronze medal this year. I think they are just, under the gun of Canada and Russia this year. And we'll talk about Russia in a bit, the home team. We're almost done here. Sorry, guys, this has been a really long video, and for good reason. A lot going on for the Olympics coming up. But for the United States, I think the bronze medal is going to be their most likely destination, and I think they will beat Sweden in that bronze medal game. Again, though, Sweden could definitely steal a medal from anybody, though. Even though I'm predicting them fourth, I think they can and maybe even will steal a medal from somebody. But that's the U.S. team. I think they're very skilled this year, and I think they have a lot of talent and a lot of they're going to be a very hard-working team and a hard team to play against. But I don't see a gold medal for them this year. And another thing to factor in with this U.S. team, the fact that they're going all the way out to Europe, and in their history, only 2 medals outside of North America. The lack of experience outside of North America is going to be a killer for them, which is why they could also finish at the bottom of the pack. if that lack of experience could kill them, and they could finish at the bottom of the pack. That bigger ice surface could turn out to be killer on these guys. So, with that being said, I see a bronze medal for this U.S. team. I think that bigger ice surface is going to hurt them against teams like Canada and, most importantly, Russia. So, that's where I think we stand for the U.S. And that's also why I think Sweden could steal a medal from them. But I think they'll beat Sweden. Next, we're going to do Team Canada, folks. Yes, we're doing Canada before Russia. Early on, folks, I did think that Canada was going to be the gold medal champions once again for the second straight year. However, now I'm not convinced. I'm really not. I'm really not convinced at all. I looked at this Canada team and I was just in absolute shock of players that did not make the cut. Eric Stahl, probably the biggest one. Eric Stahl should have definitely been on this Canadian roster already. Claude Giroux as well. Despite the rough start he had this season, he's still a boatload of skill. But talking about guys that did not make the cut, Joe Thornton didn't make the cut. He's having a big year as far as playmaking goes. Martin St. Louis, he didn't make it. He's having a big year. They didn't add him solely because of his age. Patrick Marleau didn't make it. Yes, he did. I take that back. Taylor Hall didn't make it, and a lot of people thought that the Edmonton Oilers forward would. And, guys like Eric Stahl didn't make it, and that's probably the biggest surprise of all. Eric Stahl is a guy who you would have thought would have been on that team automatically. He's just a superstar. So why he's not on that team is just beyond me. It really is beyond me why he didn't make the cut. But so let's look at the guys that did make it, and then actually one on defense. Brent Seabrook didn't make it, which is a huge surprise. That's actually a really huge surprise, and I think he definitely should have been back on the team this year. So that's where we stand with that. And Dion Phaneuf didn't make the cut, and I thought he would make it this year. But let's now look at the guys that did make the cut. Let's start with the guys who are no surprise whatsoever. Patrice Bergeron, he played on the team 4 years ago, and 4 years ago he was a surprise. Now he isn't anymore. He had a good tournament 4 years ago, and he's probably maybe the best all-around player in the game. There's no wow factor to his game, but he just does a little bit of everything, and he's one of those kinds of guys that you need, and he was a big reason why they won the gold medal 4 years ago. Jeff Carter made the team. He wasn't there 4 years ago, but definitely deserves to be there this year. He's having a great season for the Los Angeles Kings. Patrice Bergeron, by the way, plays for the Boston Bruins, for those of you who don't know. Sidney Crosby, the recently named captain of Team Canada. No surprise, Sidney Crosby of the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's the best player in the whole NHL this season. Ryan Getzlaf of the Anaheim Ducks, no surprise. He's been an absolute force to be reckoned with this season. Patrick Marleau of the San Jose Sharks, he was there 4 years ago. Definitely deserving to be back. He's just got a cannon of a shot. Rick Nash from the New York Rangers, he was kind of the risky play. He was a risky play kind of player because he wasn't playing well after he came back from the concussion, but now, in the later stages of the season, recently in the last 9 games, he's showing that he deserves to be on that Canada team, and he's showing us why. Rick Nash has just been an absolute stud in the recent stages of the season. Corey Perry of the Anaheim Ducks, no surprise. He's one of the best goal scorers in the league this year. Patrick Sharp of the Chicago Blackhawks, definitely deserving to be there. He wasn't there 4 years ago, but he's having a great season. John Tavares of the New York Islanders, without a doubt, deserves to be there. First time for him. Jonathan Toews is back. He definitely deserves to be there. This was the riskiest play of all, though. They added Steven Stamkos of the Tampa Bay Lightning to the roster. Now, generally, yes, he would definitely deserve to be there. However, he's been out with an injury all year long, and it's pretty much going to become an Olympic time decision for him as whether he's going to play or not. That's going to be big. A torn The injury he had, not easy to recover from. And that's going to really come down to it. Maybe he does return just in time for the Olympics. That will be great for Canada because it gives them another weapon. But, that's just going to be the risky play. And if he can't go, they're going to need to name a replacement, and they're going to need to do it fast. I really do think they're going to have to do it fast. But now let's look at the defense. Drew Doughty from the Los Angeles Kings, definitely deserving to be there. Duncan Keith is back from the Chicago Blackhawks. He's probably been the best defenseman in the league overall this year, so he deserves to be there. Alex Pietrangelo of the St. Louis Blues, definitely deserving to be there. A first-time Olympian. He's just a complete player. PK Subban of the Montreal Canadiens, definitely qualified. He's having a big year. Shea Weber from the Nashville Predators. He possesses a weapon at the point. He's definitely deserving to be there. And then in goal, Roberto Luongo of the Vancouver Canucks. He deserves to be there for sure. And then, we got, Carey Price of the Montreal Canadiens. He's there. And does he deserve to be there? I kind of think he does. But now let's talk. I think he definitely is qualified. He's having a good year. But let's talk about some. But now, going back, though, to players that didn't make it, though, Corey Crawford from the Chicago Blackhawks, he was a guy who maybe you would have thought would have been a part of the team. And Marc-Andre Fleury, the winningest goaltender in the NHL this year, he didn't make it. He was technically on the team 4 years ago as a third-string guy, but he didn't make it this year. But now let's talk about the players that did make it that I'm not very happy with, that I think really is going to prove to be big mistakes for Team Canada. Jamie Benn of the Dallas Stars, very good player, and I think, he's a very skilled player, but has not been the best player on the Dallas Stars this year. That has been Tyler Seguin. So if anything, Seguin maybe should have made it, if anything. Or even, again, some of the guys we mentioned earlier that should have been on the team. Why Jamie Benn's playing? He's a hard-working player, and that's really the style that Steve Yzerman's going more toward this year, a power forward type style like the Americans. That's going to prove to kill them because they're not a team meant for that style. They're meant more for their snipers and scoring. That's what's made Canada so successful, and Jamie Benn's got a lot of skill, but he is not. I just don't see. He's not the worst choice, but I just don't see why he's on this team. That's just my personal opinion. Matt Duchene from the Colorado Avalanche. He's having a career year, and actually, I guess he kind of does deserve to be there. He's having a great year. He has a lot of skill. I mean, some people will say maybe he doesn't, but I'm not. I like Matt Duchene. I like him a lot. He's one of my favorite players. So I guess I'm okay with Duchene going there. He's having a big year. Chris Kunitz of the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's having a career year for sure. But, Olympics is a completely different thing from the NHL. And Kunitz, he plays with Sidney Crosby. They've got chemistry, and they'll most likely be on the top line with Crosby. Or, if anything, on the line with Getzlaf and Perry. He has experience playing with those two as well when he was with the Anaheim Ducks. But I'm not happy with this, I don't think Kunitz should be there. He's not ready for the Olympic stage. That's just my personal opinion. You're putting in guys like Jamie Benn and Chris Kunitz and leaving out guys that should be there like Eric Stahl and Claude Giroux. Those guys should be there. Those are guys who you need, but they're not there. And it's a shame. It really is. Joe Thornton and Marty St. Louis also, Why aren't they playing? It doesn't make any sense. Why isn't Taylor Hall on this team? It just does not make any sense. I'm sure if Stamkos can't go, one of those guys is going to make it, and in my opinion, it will most likely be Eric Stahl, but I think he's the first replacement player. But again, you're putting Jamie Benn and Chris Kunitz on that team. They're hardworking players, yes, but there's no wow factor to their games. There really isn't. Well, maybe there is a little bit to Jamie Benn, but Kunitz, he's older too. He's actually really old. He's one of the older players on this team. So it makes no sense that he's even playing. It really doesn't. And then on defense, this is where I probably have the biggest complaints of all. Jay Bomeister from the St. Louis Blues. Why is he on this team? He's having a big year, yes, but I don't think he's good enough to be there. He was on the team in 2002, I believe, or something like that, or 2006. But why is he there now? He's not as good. I think offensively, he's definitely not as good as he was when he was with the Florida Panthers. I guess he's become a much more complete player, and he's not the biggest complaint of all. But why is he there instead of Brent Seabrook or Dion Phaneuf or even or even Mike Green even? Why isn't are those guys, Dan Boyle, that's the other one I was thinking of. Why isn't Dan Boyle on this team? And then you got Dan Hamhuis of the Vancouver Canucks. Once again, he's a shutdown defenseman. This is another example. Canada needs two-way defensemen. Their roster needs to be full of offensive and two-way defensemen. Their forwards need to be all offense. This is why Canada's not meant for this kind of style. You know what Yzerman's working towards. He wants to replicate what Team USA is trying to do. But it's not going to work. Canada is not meant for that. They're meant for their offense, and that's going to be killer for them in this tournament. But Dan Hamhuis, why is he there? Again, why isn't Boyle there? Why isn't Phaneuf there? Why isn't Seabrook there? Probably the biggest name that should be there to play with Duncan Keith. And then this is the biggest complaint I have overall. Marc-Edouard Vlasic from the San Jose Sharks? Why? Why? He does not do anything that shows me that he belongs on the team. Look at this. Only 4 goals, 17 points this year. He does have a plus 17 on the season, so I give him that. And I guess he's more of a shutdown defenseman, but I think Marc-Edouard Vlasic's a very good player, but I don't think he's good enough for this. Again, one of the examples that Seabrook should be on the team. Not him. Boyle should be on the team. You replace those guys. I'd take Jay Bomeister out. I'd take Marc-Edouard Vlasic out, and I'd take Dan Hamhuis out, all in a heartbeat, and instantly put in Brent Seabrook. I'd instantly put in Dion Phaneuf, and I'd instantly put in Dan Boyle. Those are guys who should be there, not these guys. And then in goal, the third-string goalie for this team, he'll probably be the third-string goalie, Mike Smith from the Phoenix Coyotes. Why is he there? Why isn't Corey Crawford there? Or why isn't Marc-Andre Fleury there? It just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Mike Smith, I don't think he's having a great year. That's just my opinion. He's not having his best year, that's for sure. So, but Steve Yzerman's the GM. Can't argue with the GM. And, well, Canada may pay for it. But that is why I think these little mistakes that they're making as far as roster players is the reason why they're going to win the silver medal and not the gold medal. So I'm not impressed with this year's Canada team at all. I expected a lot more. Obviously, Sidney Crosby, he's definitely going to be the dominant player on this team without question, and maybe the dominant player in the whole tournament. And he's going to have to be really good in order to compete with a strong Russia team this year. I have no doubt Crosby could do it, but the question is now, will he do it? He's on a much bigger ice surface now. So, with that being said, I say silver for Canada. I think they will lose to Team Russia in the gold medal game. And now, speaking of Team Russia, let's talk about it, shall we? My prediction for the gold medal champions. Oh, and Canada's in Group B, by the way. Now we go back to Group A for my prediction for the gold medal champions. Team Russia. This Russian team is absolutely loaded this year. Boatload, offense, goaltending, defense, even defense. Yes, Russia not known for their defense. This year they've got it. But look at this roster that they have. They are definitely much better than they were 4 years ago. Artem Anisimov from the Columbus Blue Jackets. Pavel Datsyuk from the Detroit Red Wings. Nikolai Kulemin from the Toronto Maple Leafs. Evgeny Malkin from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Without a doubt, he deserves to be there. He's one of the premier players in the NHL. Valeri Nichushkin from the Dallas Stars. He's a guy who's becoming a factor, and he's going to be a superstar in the NHL. He is the next Evgeny Malkin for sure. Alex Ovechkin from the Washington Capitals. He's without a doubt deserves to be there. He's the best player on the Russia team overall, for sure, and he's the top goal scorer in the NHL. Vladimir Tarasenko from the St. Louis Blues. He definitely deserves to be there. So now we talk about their defense. Anton Belov from the Edmonton Oilers. He's having a good first year in the NHL. Slava Voinov from the Los Angeles Kings. He may just be the best defenseman on that team overall. Alexei Yemelin and Andrei Markov, both of the Montreal Canadiens. Nikita Nikitin and Fedor Tutin, both of the Columbus Blue Jackets. And then in goal, Sergei Bobrovsky of the Columbus Blue Jackets and Semyon Varlamov of the Colorado Avalanche. And for Russia this year, those are just the NHL players that are playing on this team. They may have the best non-NHL players on the team this year. I mean, they're just absolutely loaded this year. They're just absolutely loaded this year. And also, actually, one name I did forget to mention, Alexander Semin of the Carolina Hurricanes. He was actually not on the roster initially. Originally, Sergei Soin, who was a very talented offensive player, from the KHL. He was supposed to be on this team. He went down with an injury and will not be able to play in the tournament because of recovering. Alexander Semin takes his place. He should have been on the team from the very beginning, in my personal opinion. That's just me, though. But then we have some of the non-NHL players on this team. Alexander Radulov, former Nashville Predator. He is one of the best skill factors on this team without question. Viktor Tikhonov, former Phoenix Coyote. Viktor Tikhonov III, I should say. Born in Latvia, but raised in Russia. He's on this team this year. Popov is on the team. But this year. Medvedev, a very skilled player. Eremenko is the third string goaltender. But the biggest name of all, who used to be in the NHL, but is not at the moment, currently playing for the SKA St. Petersburg of the KHL, former Atlanta Thrasher and New Jersey Devil, Ilya Kovalchuk. That's right, folks. Ilya Kovalchuk is on this team. So, get a chance to take a look at Kovy one more time. Well-deserving. We knew he was going to be on the team, and well-deserving. He's one of the best players. He's one of the best players in the KHL right now, and he's one of the best offensive players, period. Probably the big name that didn't make the team that maybe should have been on the team, probably Sergei Gonchar from the Dallas Stars. He's really the only one, though. Again, it's like, why is he there instead of maybe Nikulin, maybe? I don't know. Something like that. I feel like he could have made it, and I feel like potentially, I actually feel like Anton Volchenkov should have been there, rather than, Medvedev or something like that. That way you give him a full NHL roster of defense. Tereshchenko is on the team. And I've actually one other name I think should have also been on the team. Another non-NHLer. Why he isn't on the team is beyond me. Vladimir Tarasenko, Washington Capitals prospect. Why isn't he there? That is probably the one that's going to make the least amount of sense. Maybe the best prospect in the world right now. Evgeny Kuznetsov. That's what I meant to say. Evgeny Kuznetsov, Washington Capitals prospect. Vladimir Tarasenko is on the team. Why isn't Evgeny Kuznetsov on this team? That's my question. But regardless, I think this is probably the most complete team in the tournament. Again, the defense is always a concern with a Russia team. but their offense is always top-notch, and it's definitely more than top-notch this year. They're in their home country this year. They're in their turf. And now really the biggest question I think for this team this year is who's going to be their starting goaltender. Is it going to be Sergei? We all know this guy, Eremenko. He's the third-string goalie. We know that. But is it going to be Semyon Varlamov or Sergei Bobrovsky? Bobrovsky, the Vezina Trophy winner from last year, but Varlamov having a career year over in Colorado. So it's going to be a hard decision. I actually think that it's going to be Varlamov, but that's just my opinion. At the end of the day, I think he's better than Bobrovsky right now. But both of them, we all know, are going to have to take their game up another level to live up to the expectations I'm throwing on them. So, with all that being said, yes, I think Russia is the team that is going to win the gold medal overall. I think they will beat Canada in the gold medal game. They're going to have a run to remember in front of the home faithful, in front of their home crowd. They're not going to let Canada embarrass them in the way they did in Vancouver, and I think Alex Ovechkin is finally going to defeat Sidney Crosby in a major setting. So that is your Russia team this year, folks. Again, Alexander Semin recently named to the team to replace Sergei Soin. But yes, he should have been there from the very beginning, actually. But yes, that is your Russia team. I think they actually just got a whole lot better now with Semin being on the team. He may not be having his best year, but he's going to definitely be one of their top 6 forwards. And with that being said, folks, thank you for joining me for this really long video. There was a lot to go over, over an hour video time, less than an hour and a half, but there was a lot to talk about. Videos will never be this long again, I promise you. This is probably the last longer video I'll be doing for at least a little while, but there was a lot to go over with the Olympics. So, okay, everybody, thank you for joining me. That'll do it for the longest episode I've ever done, episode 106 of Hockey on the Spot. This has been Hockey on the Spot with Brandon Barenfeld. I'm Brandon Barenfeld. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you, and have a great day.